Welcome to Washington, D.C. This is War Room Pandemic. It's the 14th of March, the year of our Lord 2020. We are right across the street from the plaza that houses the nation's capital, that nation being the United States of America. I want to thank all of our distribution partners, John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem Broadcasting, America's Voice, the streaming platform of the Trump Revolution, now Dish Network, Channel 219, also FM 99.1 and 103.9 in Chicago. The Nexus.org and IRRS throughout the entire world on shortwave radio, medium wave radio, and also picked up on many, many AM stations throughout the world. And we want to hear all your comments by going to Nexus.org. Also, if you want to join the show and be part of it, hashtag War Room Pandemic. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. Jason Miller, Jack Maxey, Greg Manns, the entire War Room team suiting up on a Saturday. We're eventually, I think very shortly, trying to work it out to go 7 days a week. This is that important. We did that on impeachment, and I think this is actually more important. That was actually impeachment was fake news, right? This is reality check, and I want to go to for our listeners throughout the world, the President of the United States, America being the indispensable nation, and we don't say that with any kind of chauvinism. It's always tried to lead the way because we're made up of every nation in the world, every nationality in the world kind of came here. As my parents used to say, we got kicked out of every decent country in the world and ended up here in this wilderness to forge a country that prides itself in taking leadership, particularly during times of crisis. And the President of the United States stepped up yesterday, declared a national emergency in the United States of America. And I can only tell people that is a very, very, very rare situation. He's acting now like a wartime president. And Jason, you've got some breaking news updates.
Yes, Press Secretary and Communications Director Stephanie Grisham just tweeted out that President Trump is currently leading the coronavirus task force meeting that began at 10 a.m. Immediately following that, at noon, Vice President Mike Pence will host a news conference with members of the task force from the White House briefing room. So that's come up at noon, right when we finish up here of Hour 2 of War Room Pandemic.
So that'll be picked up. I'm sure America's Voice will pick that up live immediately in other cable stations. That's one you should stay tuned to. I'm sure they're going to come out with another raft of issues. Remember, yesterday in the press conference, he said in 2 hours, I'm putting out another paper. I think people confuse that with the deal that was being cut with Nancy Pelosi. I think that was totally separate. I believe it was a set of action items. I hope that they are addressing right now, talking internally and talking about the United Kingdom actually being added to the ban list. Not that, look, we obviously love the United Kingdom. I love London, all the people there. Big supporter of Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage, all the Tories, what they've done and tried to accomplish. But this is beyond politics. I think they're taking a different strategy, and that's going to lead to a lot of –
There's some breaking news from England, too, which I think is important, and it talks about the acceleration of this disease. So as of 9 a.m. today, there are now 1,130 confirmed cases. That's an increase of 342 overnight.
What percentage is that, 28%? It's all percentages, not raw numbers, the percentage.
It's roughly about 35% overnight. 35%. And they also increased the number.
That means a double every other day.
Right. The number of deaths has roughly doubled overnight from 10 to 21.
The thing, folks, was David Ramaswamy, who was part of the private group that went to India on the President Modi trip. He was one of the guys that helped with the Howdy Modi situation here. He came on early on and talked about exponentiality, the understanding the exponential function. That's if you see these growth curves, it's the doubling every couple of days. Remember, and I want to go back to Dr. Gabriel Leung from Hong Kong University. He's one of the SARS virus hunters. We've got all his works. We link up to our site. Make sure you go to War Room hashtag or pandemic hashtag War Room, our website. Go to our website. If you go to our Twitter feed, you can click right on and go to the website. We put up the breaking news, all the news throughout the day, the good, the bad, the ugly. And what he said early on is that in running its course, he was the very first guy to do a set of math. At that time, he said, and this is, by the way, when it was in one nation in the world, in Hong Kong. This is when it was just in China. When he started the show, there was one country that had this. In fact, we started the show, I think, the day before they actually put, or 2 days before they put Wuhan in lockdown. And remember, there were not that many cases in Wuhan at the time and not that many dead. But Leung actually came out and said, hey, I think the real base here is 44,000, right? And he did extrapolated math. He said, look, by the end of May, there will be, this thing will double until he said it will, you will have herd immunity globally. That this thing will double every 6.2 days, and he would not put a set of math at the end of it. But we did the. Remember, you and I did the math at the time, and at first I said, "Should we put this up on radio? This is going to be kind of scary." If Dr. Lung is right and is doubling every 6.2 days, the number gets to be over 1 billion people by the middle of by the time, quote unquote, you get herd immunity, right? And so, look, the set of math here is scary. That's why the most powerful thing President Trump has said this entire time. Nothing is inevitable. This is all about human action and human agency. You're clearly fighting something that's quite unique, right? This pandemic, this virus. You also have an economic crisis on top of that. Now you have a financial crisis on top of that. So it's added the complexity. But he's stepping into the shoes here and really showing some leadership. Anything else you got, Jason? Jump in. I want to go back to the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization opined to the British government's policy. And what did they say, Jack?
Well, they basically said, look, we don't really understand what's going on with this virus, and you're taking a pretty dangerous path if you're just going to go for herd immunity. I've got my extra producer here, Stephen K. Bannon, adjusting my mic.
You forget I'm a film. I used to be a film
Former
director. Former director. The guy drive me nuts. It's one of these actors that will not hit his mark. It's called. I know. All the audience gets on me for eating the microphone, but I'd rather eat the microphone than the guy's like 3 feet away. Okay, and poor Vish always gets lit up on social media for the sound balance is terrible. Maxie's always very light.
Exactly. I'm coming in and out.
What did the World Health Organization say? They opined to this. Not that I'm a huge fan of the World Health Organization, but they did opine to what they thought the British strategy was, right?
Well, it was one of the representatives of the World Health Organization was giving an interview with the BBC this morning, and she said, this virus hasn't been in our population for long enough for us to know what's really going to happen. So she's guardedly cautious about the potential plan to just let it run its course.
Some breaking news here in the United States. The governor of Georgia has declared a public health emergency.
Okay, so another state. I think that's 25 states?
I think that would make it 28 from my last count.
28 states have now. And hey, some of the action, and this is what I love about our system, it's kind of like the German system, but I mean the states here taking action. Governor Cuomo, I saw Governor Inslee last night on TV, and he was talking about ventilators. In fact, Jason, let's get the. Do we have the clip on Tucker Carlson last night on the ventilator situation?
Absolutely. Here we go.
This is important.
That exchange last night, and I must be honest with you, I was really troubled by it because you were asked a direct question by Martha McCallum: do we have enough ventilators and ICU units? And you appeared to intentionally not answer it. So I'm going to ask you that question again in the hope that we'll be reassured by the answer. Do we have enough ventilators to treat a surge in cases of coronavirus right now, do you believe?
So we have a stockpile of ventilators. So right now, today, we are able to address people that need ventilators. Our strategy, though, is to not make the situation worse. But there is a stockpile of ventilators. The president talked about ventilators today and said we're going to purchase more to make sure that we have that backup supply. But the idea here is we don't want to get into a situation where there are shortages, which is why we're taking that aggressive mitigation action. But, there is a strategic stockpile that has medical supplies, which include ventilators. And we talked the president talked about that today, about getting more.
Right. So that seems wise. Of course, you never want to be in a position where you run out of anything in a hospital. Can you put some meat on those bones and give us a sense of how many ventilators are in place, how many are in the stockpile, how many do you think we will need?
That's a good question. In terms of numbers, we're still assessing. We're still working with hospitals to understand what their needs are. Right now, though, I will tell you that we haven't had hospitals at this point in large numbers saying we need more ventilators. But that situation could change rapidly. And so we're
Okay, so, and this is constructive observation.
In advance of Dr. Fauci doing the full Ginsburg tomorrow.
He's doing everything.
There are some questions he needs to be ready to answer tomorrow.
Okay, so this is, and Jason Mills is the best at prepping for a question, because here's one thing I think the administration and the guys have to get on board. Every answer has to have numbers with it, People want data. We don't need word salads. Here's the thing. People don't need to be patted on the head and say, hey, we're going to get through this or everything like that. They got that. We are going to get through this. It is how we're going to get through this, okay, and what is going to be the collateral damage, because there is going to be some collateral damage. What's going to be the collateral damage in getting through this? You have to come with numbers. You have to come with facts. They're not there for an opinion. That's just not good enough. Tucker is not there taking cheap shots. Tucker Carlson right now is must-watch television for the simple reason is he's sitting there very calmly. He asks very fair questions. He doesn't ask a cheap shot follow-on. He asks a, hey, you didn't quite answer it. I'm going to give you another shot. You can't have a word salad. You have to, and Seema Verma is as good as they get. I mean, she's one of the most accomplished people. She's worked with Governor Pence when Vice President Pence was governor in Indiana. She's been in the administration from the very beginning, and she's got to be main battery and going out there. I think just the comms people got to sit there and they got to know you're going to get asked that question, right? You're going to get asked that question, and you have to have the numbers. Here, you know, and there are people talking about now. Inslee on MSNBC last night was saying, hey, we've got local entrepreneurs in Washington that are now starting to go out and produce, you know, guys like your dad, the welders. We got guys running to the sound of the guns. They know we have a ventilator problem. They're going to start jerry-rigging ventilators and start making ventilators. Now, that's where you're going to need, you know, to drop the regulatory FDA, right? You have to make sure this thing works. But when she goes up there, you're going to these questions. You're still tomorrow. I'm taking a wild guess here. I think you're going to get asked a question about the test. Okay?
Yeah, the question is how many tests have been performed? That is, if I'm literally all 5 interviews, first question, how many tests have been performed? This would then be, I mean, Dr. Fauci needs to have that answer. I mean, we've had a week to get it together. I understand if maybe we didn't have it on last Sunday's shows. And if Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams didn't have that, or Dr. Ben Carson, the HUD secretary, didn't have that answer. That's fine. It has to be a different story for tomorrow.
Yeah, and also when's it going to go up on the site, and how can we track that? And where are those tests coming from? Are these now the commercial tests? Is it the CDC test? This is just basic stuff. If they're going to do 90% of it, they'll do that's fine. But it's got to be the media is all yelling evidence and fact base. Give them evidence. Give them facts.
And again, if you let's talk about this from the communications aspect. What people want to hear is they want to hear certainty. They want to hear the metrics on this. They want to hear that there's progress. And so, for example, because we know we have it on the reporting end, we have a decentralized 50-state system. So say, for example, CDC keeps records on everyone who's testing positive for this, but they don't have the current records on everyone who's taken the test. And so that's where the big disconnect is. We've now had a week. If Dr. Fauci needs to come out tomorrow and say, on Tuesday, we're making that announcement, or on Wednesday, we're making that announcement because we've gone through all 50 states and we want to make sure that we have the most accurate, up-to-date data, that's an acceptable answer. But we're not able to get that because it's a decentralized reporting. That won't work for tomorrow when you have Stephanopoulos and Chuck Todd jamming you up.
Well, here's what I hope that happens today, and this is why I think everybody's got to be very hopeful, grateful, happy that the president's chairing the meeting for the next 2 hours. They're chairing the meeting over in the White House of the task force itself. I would hope, and what I would advise is coming out there when Vice President Pence steps up and does a press conference, that there's no item that's not addressed today that they could ask a cheap shot question on tomorrow. That you literally lay it all out. We talk about and do it in a way that is short, sweet, and got some numbers backed up to it.
There's also one other thing too. Sorry, Jack, just one other thing on following on this. When you do a Sunday show, you always want to go out with an announcement. There's always something that you have to lead with. And so, for example,
walk our audience through why Sunday shows are so important, why we make such a big deal about them, and why in the political ecosystem they're kind of the railhead.
Yeah, because the Sunday shows are what set the week. This is where it sets the framework. It is what then your broadcast magazine formats, your Today shows, your GMAs, your CBS This Mornings, your Fox and Friends. This is what they all go through. The producers go through to say, this is what we're going to talk about for the week. This is what assignment editors.
And we're telling you this is what's important. This is what's going to drive the news this week. That's what we're doing it. The other thing I'll tell you, every time I'm on a Sunday show, is that I get contacted from people I know throughout the country that are into politics at the local and regional level. So these are shows for people that follow politics, not just the inside the Beltway crowd, but this is for those when you see they have 2 million audience. This is not the Today Show, it's a general audience, but it is a more broader population of the political system throughout the country, kind of the leaders in all the different aspects of the country. That's why they're so important for your messaging and how you're trying to present things.
Right, which, by the way, I mean, Maria Bartiromo's show at 10 a.m. on Fox News every Sunday gets more eyeballs than anybody. I mean, that's the, you know, that's
2.5, 3 million eyeballs. I mean,
right. I mean, that's it's a very well done show. But that is, you know, that's a big one. But this is the influencing the influencers. And so, but the thing is, on these Sunday shows, you always want to go out with something to announce. You always want to go out with, because the thing that you sit around, if you're in a room like this, essentially a war room type deal, if you're doing the communications prep with a Dr. Anthony Fauci, someone like that, you say, Dr. Fauci, what is so last week with Vice President Pence, the Drudge headline that they wanted coming out of this is the government has their hand, and people should be confident that their government is working hard for them. That was what I'm assuming was the Drudge headline for last week. But for tomorrow, for Dr. Fauci, he needs to have something he's leaning forward with. Maybe that is, here's an announcement on numbers. Here's an announcement on another FDA development. Here is, I want to come out and give everyone the breakdown on some new exciting things that we're announcing from FDA, NIH, CDC.
I think one of the things they're working on, and I think this plays back to, I think the tell was President Trump social distancing. I wouldn't be surprised if he came out. The Defense Department announced last night, and having been a member of the Naval Service, when the Defense Department announces that we're locking down any travel in the continental United States that's not absolutely vital, right? That's a big deal, okay? I think the president, I'm sure they're working through this, of do you take a 2-week hiatus on rail traffic? Do you take a 2-week hiatus? Do you start to limit domestic flights? Right? Do we start to, because now you've got certain hot spots, right? But you got to start thinking that through. Those are the types of things I'm sure they're working through now. Those are the types of announcements you'd like to see on the Sunday show to basically start to drive the narrative that, hey, we're trying to get ahead of this, right? We're trying to get ahead of this. And that's one of the things that the media is hammering on testing. Testing is very, very important. And I think it was Governor Hogan yesterday, and people try to mock him. But I don't think they were listening to what Hogan was saying. Hogan was saying, hey, the testing is very important, but it's here in Maryland. It's particularly here in Baltimore, other areas. We're going to start taking my focus now is to take action of how to limit noise here. Go ahead.
I brought up Dr. Jerome Adams a minute ago, our Surgeon General. He just tweeted out, hospital and healthcare systems, please consider stopping elective procedures. And he wrote, please consider stopping elective procedures in all caps until we can flatten the curve.
This is huge. Jump in. Yeah, we've talked about this for 2 weeks. That you have that frees up.
We talk about numbers, and I said this 2 weeks ago. What is the most important thing that can be done? It is to tell the truth. Yesterday, using CDC's calculations, the New York Times did a very good in-depth discussion of what we can expect on a numerical basis. They suggest between 2.4 million and 21 million people will require hospitalization. We have 925,000 hospital beds that are staffed, and less than 10% of them are ICU beds. Between 160 million and 214 million people in the United States could be infected over the course of this epidemic, and as many as 200,000 to 1.7 million dead. This is something that we have to confront. I think it's important that we prepare.
And I want to go to this. This is the CDC math. This is what Dr. Fauci said the other day. This is what Dr. Fauci was getting into when all of a sudden the administration said, hey, I think we're going to take a time out of the testimony, and we're having an emergency meeting at the White House right now. Dr. Fauci needs to go. Those are pretty stark numbers. The New York Times has done a separate analysis of that. We're not saying, and this is why I think President Trump, remember the watchword here, nothing is inevitable. That's where you're seeing, and now you see the Surgeon General coming out saying, number one, why are they saying no elective? We do not want you to do elective surgery. You got to free up those hospital beds. You also got to free up the doctors, right? You got to free up the doctors and the hospital beds and the ventilators.
Excellent move, and I think there is, to a certain extent, and Vish, maybe you can.
First off, we're asking. This is still a thing. Remember, in the national emergency powers gives the president extraordinary amount of powers, right? So right now you're asking nicely and politely, hey, for the good of the community, for the common good, if you got elective surgery, do it some other time. Because we have enough. Vital surgery has to go on. Plus with this, but this also doubles back to Tom Bossard's. Now Tom Bossard's piece, and Tom is not a guy that's a lot of laughs, right? He's a very straightforward, a very programmatic guy. He was the National Security Council's security guy that this group reported up to. And he said the other day that he thinks we're 10 days or 2 weeks away from the hospitals being overwhelmed with patients starting to come in. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. This is episode 45 of War and Pandemic. We're live in the War Room on Capitol Hill, in our nation's capital, the first, the finest, the best show on pandemic. Now, not just all throughout the United States, ubiquitous in many different distribution platforms. Also, we're on podcasts. We got over 3.8 million downloads. And we're now throughout the world with the help of distribution partners. You can hear this. Make sure you're part of the show. Go to hashtag War Room Pandemic. We want observations. We want your criticisms. Most importantly, we want, if you have news, if you have local news, send us something, connect to it. We'll get to it. We'll get it up on the site. We're going to return with the team in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Live from our nation's capital, 14 March, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 45, Room Pandemic. Much action is now breaking. It's going to be every day, 24 hours a day. Fox News actually announced that the Shannon Bream show is going to be extended from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. It's going to be 2 hours on dealing with the pandemic, and then they're going to go all night with news into, I think, the early Fox and Friends early show all night long. I'm sure other networks are going to follow that. I'm sure the business networks, you can go to Bloomberg TV and watch the capital markets all night long. But this is now a global pandemic. It's also a global economic crisis. And on top of that, we got a global financial crisis. So we got the trifecta. It cannot get more complicated than it is. And one of the breaking things of news today was Guatemala announced that, hey, if you're an American citizen, you're frozen out of coming into the country. I tip my hat to Guatemala if that's the decision that people down there have made and want to get until they say the United States gets sorted. We're not comfortable. I got full respect for that, and hopefully we'll show the people in Guatemala we got our act together. I think the President of the United States now a wartime president, so deemed by our own Jason Miller 6 weeks ago. No, I guess in January he did that. One of the very first shows. Oh, any breaking news? The White House today, and I think this is very important, the President of the United States is chairing the meeting of the task force at the White House in the West Wing, even as we speak. Started at 10 o'clock. At noon, it's going to finish. And Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, is going to come out and then do the press conference, the presser, hopefully take questions from the press. And our only watchword there is flood them with detail. Numbers are your friend here. Just get it out in front. Even if the numbers are not great numbers, people can handle it. What people want to see, and we've seen this throughout the world. One of the things that people in Wuhan, as we first started the show with Miles Guo and the guys at G News, we want to thank them for their distribution, was the fact that the firewall was up and people couldn't, it was tough in communicating. Every person out there in the world, what they want is more information. They will make their own decisions, but you got to give them information. Anything else breaking out of the White House?
Yeah, I just want to add on what you're saying there, Steve. On a briefing like this, I 100% agree we have to start getting the metrics out there, especially in advance of Dr. Fauci doing the Sunday show tour tomorrow on doing the full Ginsburg. There's another thing, too, that I think sometimes we overlook. As much as I talk about drudge headlines or having the absolute metrics, it's about showing progress, that we're moving in the right direction. And so
Exactly.
some of these things, like when come out, what I would love to see today, obviously, is adding UK to the list of the EU countries. That would be a big, definitive, bold thing to go and do. But also to go and follow up on what the president was saying yesterday about the airline industry or the hotel industry or the cruise ship industry. And
You mean on the financial side?
on the financial side, but even to say we're working on this, we expect to have a plan within days. We have heard from you. We know how critical this is to everyone who's hurting, who's wondering about paychecks. We're on this. We're working on it. Our crack economic team. We're making progress on this. Expect to have something in a short order. Sometimes you're going to have the final answer to present. Sometimes you have progress, and those can sometimes be equally as important.
I do think they ought to think about the task force. We said this for a while. I think they ought to bifurcate the task force now. I think you got so many complex issues. They just, the Surgeon General of the United States, very impressive guy, came out and said, hey, we want all the community hospitals, all the hospitals to think about elective surgery. Can you take a hiatus on that if it is elective? You've got so many issues dealing with domestic air traffic. Pentagon just came out and said, hey, anything that's not absolutely essential, we're not doing. You got domestic air traffic. You got domestic rail traffic. And by the way, each one of those has a massive financial and economic impact to it, right? It's just not you can tell guys, hey, take a 2 weeks holiday. One of the big debates they've had over the last couple of days is actually closing the markets, right? And you got de Blasio and those guys saying for the safety, obviously be major perturbations in the world capital markets if we actually close. One of the things we've got the integrity and depth and transparency of American capital markets is really the backbone of the world. So it's these types of decisions. So I think that you've got so many economic decisions and financial. You've got the G7. I think this G7 call on Monday, the first time they've had a video conference, I think, of all the leaders is terrific. If I was the president, I would one of the things I recommend is put out the agenda that's going to be and what we're going to be talking about. One of that should be this kind of coordination of this, coordination of the healthcare issues, right? Number one, coordination of the fiscal stimulus issues, and the last is the coordination of the central bank issues, right? So you deal with each one of them. We got the healthcare. We've got the economic issue with fiscal stimulus, which is going to be massive, big, as the president would say, and then we've got the coordination with the central banks. Remember, they're saying right now it's baked into some of the numbers, but one of the reasons the market came back is that the Federal Reserve, they're talking about the Fed may actually make a 100 basis point cut this Wednesday at their meeting. A 100 basis point cut would take the Fed rate to zero. That's never happened before, I don't think, in the history of the Republic, Mr. Jack Maxey.
No, it has not. Former repo trader here.
Yeah, and I'm telling you that is a shock to the system. These are all people should understand. I think this is why not just this show, but get more and more information, get engaged in this. The world is going through some massive changes. Some of these changes are going to have long-term implications. It is incumbent upon you, your family, your job, your health, your economic well-being to get as much information as possible. One of the things of free men and free women is the ability to, you're in a community. There are going to be certain dictates that come out that you're going to have to comply with, but you're still a free person, right? You can make a decision to go to Walmart and clean out the stock of the thing, or you can make a decision, hey, maybe I only need one box of Tylenol now because for the greater good of everybody, for the commons, I'll leave some others there. But that's what free men and women do. It only helps with more information. And I think this is what's so powerful about the president stepping into this decision. Now he's chairing the meeting on Saturday. They're going to have a press conference right after. They're clearly going to a different strategy. I'm going to flood the zone with information and show action. And there are so many actions out there that need to be taken.
Something very interesting that just came out of Great Britain, and we've been following it, and there have been questions about their methodology. There is an open letter with 198 academics in the fields of math and science that they've sent to the UK government, and they say that going for, quote, herd immunity at this point does not seem to be a viable option, as this will put the NHS...
Slow, give me this again. Got distracted.
198 academics in math and sciences have written a letter to the government of Great Britain saying that they think that this attempt to go for herd immunity at this point does not seem to be a viable option, and it will overwhelm the NHS, and they're demanding absolutely very rigid social separation measures.
I don't want to say that we're ahead of the curve here, and I wouldn't say it's a vile option, but we talked about this last night. The United Kingdom, this is a big decision, and sometimes it's in nomenclature because people have not had to deal with pandemics. This whole set of math and this whole set of concepts, the RO number, the R-aught number, the transmittability, the mortality rate, people are now arguing about what's the denominator of how many people are actually infected, asymptomatic. Hey, that's a glossary. You're going to have to get familiar with it. We remember in the war room there are no tears and no whining. You're going to have to get familiar with it. But when we see this thing in the UK, now that Dr. Hatfield's gotten up to speed, we knew pretty much this is a radical decision. I don't know if I call it vile, but it's definitely radical. And to me, knowing that they made that decision, there's absolutely no question you got to stop. You have to stop air traffic from coming in because they're making a decision on herd immunity, which is, hey, we're going to let this thing run its course. We're going to try to protect our elderly and the infirm that do it. But now, and I think this is the power of society. You didn't have this in China, where the doctor in China, Dr. Li, and his 8 colleagues early on, and we now know after the lying CCP knew about this for 6 or 7 weeks, Dr. Lee and his buddies on a WeChat line said kind of the same thing, said, hey, I think something's going on here. I think we got a SARS outbreak. They dragged that through, and I think we're going to get to information. He was tortured to sign the proclamation and said he was a rumor monger. Now we've got guys out there saying it's a vile decision, but at least this ought to be fully vetted, I think, by the British people, because it's a major strategic decision for their society.
Well, and there's something, hopefully Vish can throw it up. We've been showing that chart about flattening the curve. There's a beautiful example. We found this yesterday of a graph of what happened in St. Louis and what happened in Philadelphia.
So one of the things about 3 Seconds to Midnight, is that the 3 Seconds to Midnight by Dr. Hatfield, he goes through the pandemics in the world. He goes through, and this is what, remember, when we first named the show War Room Pandemic, we were getting eye rolls. This is back in the summer, saying, Bannon, your hair's on fire. But no, we took the 3 great pandemics from, in 452, I think it was, the Justinian pandemic in Constantinople that essentially destroyed the Roman Empire, the bubonic plague, the Black Plague in the Middle Ages, and then the Spanish flu that really began in Haskell, Kansas. The Spanish flu was named such because so many people in Spain died so quickly. But in walking through that pandemic, he very early on had specific examples of social distancing and tough decisions that political leaders had to make.
And if Vish has it up there, you can see it. That the spiked version, that is Philadelphia. The mayor of Philadelphia did not take any measures. The red line is St. Louis. Now at the end, they
no, hang on. Not just didn't take any measures. They were selling war bonds, and he actually allowed parades and war bond rallies, right, to take place. And it was in, correct me if I'm wrong, after a couple of those rallies, this thing exploded through the population.
It did. In fact, his own medical professionals said, don't do it. They had already had some infections that had come into the Navy Yard with returning troops. Some of the excess had already been sent to Philadelphia hospitals. And the mayor of Philadelphia just sort of was in denial about the science, which was quite imperfect then.
The guy in St. Louis took a lot of grief too. He said, this is overreaction. We got people walking around in masks. You're doing all this. He saved so many lives by getting ahead of it, and he caught nothing but grief. There was nobody sitting there going, you're fantastic.
He shut down everything, the theaters, the bars. He made women sew cotton masks out of things like flour sacks and forced everybody in the city to wear them. Now, if you look at that chart, the number of deaths are not necessarily that much lower in St. Louis, but they're stretched out over a period of 3 months instead of just one.
Which means you could have imploded the health system and had more.
Absolutely.
Greg Manns.
So some breaking news coming out of the White House. In a statement, the deputy press secretary saying, out of an abundance of caution, temperature checks are now being performed on any individuals who are in close contact with the president and vice president.
Bingo.
Yeah,
I tell you, now they're getting serious.
Yeah, I mean, this is good. And also
protect the asset.
And also, I mean, just to, we got to call things out here. So crying Chuck Schumer just is giving a press conference in New York where he's trying to essentially take credit for President Trump declaring the emergency yesterday, saying, I told President Trump to do this a week ago. He's also out there hyping up what was passed out of the House. Now, keep in mind, crying Chuck has been just a complete obstructionist doing this whole thing. But I hope people realize what this is that crying Chuck is doing, and that is to blatantly politicize all of our recovery efforts, and also to try to get ahead of Vice President Pence's press conference.
Oh no, this is the big. By the way, we'll make an announcement. The America's Voice.news, Dish Channel 219. The team there. Immediately after War Room Pandemic, we're going to go off the air just at about noon Eastern Time. Immediately, they're going to be covering live the press conference. So everybody that's listening, watching, stay tuned. America's Voice.news, the streaming platform for the Trump revolution, Trump movement. On Dish Channel 219 is live coverage of the Trump press conference. By the way, some of the best commentary around is the voice of the deplorables over at America's Voice.news. Really proud to be part of their family and the great help they give us with the John Frederick Tree to put this show on throughout the entire world. Also, want to announce at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday on WABC, the premier station, talk radio station, I think, in the nation, and the basically the channel that launched Rush Limbaugh to national prominence. We're going to be doing a 1-hour special from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on pandemic on WABC. We'll be coming out with more details overnight on Twitter and everything else. We've got all our other distribution platforms, and we're going to talk about this more on Monday morning, what to expect. But we're going to have a concise 1 hour to get the folks in New York City and other places. It's a nationally known WABC in New York, 5 p.m. on Saturday. What else is coming out of the White House today? They're pretty powerful that they now said that, hey, we get the joke. He's president of the United States. This is what the Secret Service and others should be doing. We're going to do temperature checks. I've already, from sources over there, they're not taking a lot of meetings in the White House, right? They're coming.
I think they're taking no meetings unless you have a DR next to your name or a general in front of your name. You're probably not getting in the door.
Exactly. This is hunker down. I mean, this is what it's all about. He's taking leadership. I really think Chuck Schumer sitting there, snarking on it is not productive. And I got to tell you, if I was Governor Cuomo, I wouldn't be happy. I think I've never been a big fan of Governor Cuomo because ideologically, but he's stepped up. He's acted like a leader. President Trump has said he's had a couple of good conversations with him. President Trump is talking about he's had great conversations with the governor of California. These guys have tremendous responsibilities, men and women, are the governors of these states. We are a republic. A lot of this stuff, and as Jack Maxey said from day one, this goes all the way down to the community supervisors, the community hospitals. This is where the whole system's got to connect. That's what's so powerful. It wasn't just the $40 billion. It's not, and it's just not the optics. It's actually the technicality, as Jim Schultz said the other day. A whole bunch of stuff starts to interconnect when you declare it a national emergency, and really gives the president pretty big powers. There's more powers he hasn't even talked about that he's got in case. I mean, the elective surgery today is a request. You can actually get it down there that you can make it less than a request, right?
But in all caps request, just to be very clear on this.
Was it all caps request?
It got to the as far as don't do these. That was in all caps from, again, Dr. Jerome Adams, not exactly an all caps type of tweeter. Steve, to the conversation you and Jack were having a moment ago about the UK and what they're doing with the coronavirus, Daily Beast is up with a story this morning with the headline, How Britain's Insanely Risky Coronavirus Experiment Will Affect the U.S. from reporter Jamie Ross. And so a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people are, literally calling
We didn't call it insanely risky. Is that what they said?
Insanely risky.
But if you have the Dr. Hatfields of the world that are kind of your mentors and he walks you through the different things, as soon as I saw that, and here's what I don't understand. I don't understand what the debate is internally, that you don't try to go all in hard on containment. First off, just for a population, one of the reasons, look, there are sunlit uplands on the other side of this. We're going to get through this. There's no doubt about that. That we're going to get through this, and there's going to be some pain. Look, everybody's got to be a big boy and girl, but you're going to get through this. You pull together as one unit, right? And you know that you've got to get through this, and everybody. It's for the common good and a common pursuit. This is not just whole of government right now, as Mike Pence said the very first day. This is whole of society, right? We're a whole of society going after this. In the United Kingdom, I don't know how you just sit there and go, hey, we're going to step back and take the punches, and we think we can mitigate. Remember, mitigation means we think we can mitigate this and protect those most vulnerable, but that's a big roll of the dice because the containment can explode on you.
The other thing, too, is, doesn't this fly in the face? This is when we got to punch in Raheem here. We have to pull him off his resurrect him. But he's feeling a lot better. I spoke with him this morning. Just so people don't get serious. He's feeling great.
Raheem's going to be back in the war room as soon as we get a complete sign-off on his test, which we're going to have him on here on Monday. We can't take calls right now from experts, but we want to have Raheem walk through his process. I think it's very important, right? He's been at this now for a week.
Right, because this whole move, this seems to fly in the face of the British spirit of fighting things, of standing up and saying, we will not get pushed around. The Blitz. To just go and say, hey guys, sorry, we just
herd immunity.
Yeah, herd immunity. A lot of you are going to die. I
think that the issue that is going on right here is, and you can see it in that chart that we did from St. Louis. There is a kind of inevitability concerning the infection rate. And if there is a certain mortality level, and we hope that's a sub 1%, there is a kind of inevitability of this rolling through. Now, obviously, you want to slow down that process. But I think the English people, to a certain extent, and I give Johnson some credit, and I give the health minister of Germany some credit, They are literally preparing their group of people for what is going to be very, very hard for people to deal with. I mean, this is going to be an existential crisis.
But here's where I disagree. Angela Merkel goes, and we ought to get that up on the site. Angela Merkel goes and gives a because she's a chemist, right? I'm no fan, but she's a serious person. She gives a very detailed thing to the Bundestag or whatever they call it, the parliament. And she lays out and drops a dime on them that, hey, by the way, I agree with this guy, Gabriel Leung. I think 60 to 70% of our population could get infected and then doesn't take the action, basically has the herd immunity thing. And it's just like the doctor said to Boris, because he did the same thing. Hey, that's a vile option. The Bavaria and Saxony and these different districts that are kind of the federated group are sitting in the lead and say, hey lady,
not going to happen.
Hey lady, how about a shutdown? Right? My point is just human nature would rather, I think, fight this by action. And this is why the president, what he did today. The social distancing in all caps is the beginning of the new meme. That's the beginning of the whole thing. It's all going to roll from then. You've seen tweets come out, elective surgery. Go ahead, Jason.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I know we just have a little bit of time. We want to make sure we get to the Italy and people
Yeah,
singing.
by the way, so we've got some great, powerful stuff. And we're going to try to show every day throughout the world the human spirit in going through this. In Italy, people are breaking out in song. I think the guys at Vox have done a great job of combining this. Jason, go ahead and tee this up.
So these are people on their balconies playing music, singing. There's go through a couple of these, but if you can imagine these street scenes where everyone's out on their balcony, everyone's singing.
In isolation, social distancing.
Isolation.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Very powerful.
This is an empty street where someone's singing from their balcony. People are joining in.
Very powerful. And we're seeing, and we're going to highlight in the show every day these things, these human actions that people are taking to bind together. You show the power of the human spirit. Look, nothing is inevitable, right? This is all about human agency and human action. The sunlit uplands are before us. We're going to go through, hey, Fauci said the other day, it may be 8 weeks, it may be 9 weeks, it may be several months. Right, but it's going to be that curve is going to come down, right, and that's what I think that we've known from the beginning, and now it's inevitable. This is going to happen. It's not fake news. You see that not just every major sporting event, every university, everything took it for action. I want to thank you guys for coming in today. This has been the War Room Pandemic, episode 45. We're going to be here starting back on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to try to figure out our 7-day-a-week schedule to go. We're also going to be doing a special WABC in New York at 5 p.m. on a Monday afternoon, besides the 2-hour show we'll have in the morning. Also, please stay on this dial. Please stay at Dish 219, America's Voice Not News. The team there is going to pick up live as soon as we're off the press conference of the Vice President of the United States, coming out of a 2-hour meeting with President Donald J. Trump on the task force to get ahead of the coronavirus and this pandemic. Episode 45 for everybody throughout the world. Please go to #WarRoomPandemic. We want to hear your comments, your observation, particularly if you got local news or things that are breaking and need to see. And also give us all your comments on nexus.org. Till Monday morning at 10. Thank you.